Hello and welcome to This Way to RL podcast. My name is Beth. This Way to RL is your roadmap, breadcrumbs, or if you prefer, red pill back to the real world. For those of you who are glued to your consoles, computers, or smartphones, join me as I talk about online gaming addiction. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I'm pleased to welcome a guest to the podcast today. Sean is someone I know from an online community we are both members of, and he has some experience with gaming and gaming addiction. Sean first discovered games in the 1980s when his techie dad would copy games from his friends and let his kids play them on their Atari console. Sean caught the gaming bug, but it wasn't until he was an adult and the advent of Facebook games that he started to see the potential pitfalls of excessive gaming. It was in the game Mafia Wars that Sean found himself spending more and more time gaming and less time with family and friends. Sean, however, had experience as a smoking cessation counselor for 12 years and decided to utilize those strategies for quitting smoking and apply them to his gaming addiction. Sean is also the creator and founder of the Membership Answer Man, a business dedicated to helping others start and run successful membership businesses. Sean, you are very welcome to This Way to RL podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Beth, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to it. It sounded like it'd be a kick in the pants talking to you and hearing some of your other podcasts and your story and background is like I can totally relate. I so relate.
Well, tell us about your background with gaming.
So yeah, like you mentioned, way back in the 80s, I remember when that little old Atari console came out. We got one, and pretty sure we had it set up at my grandmother's, which I spent a lot of time at in my younger years. As I sit and think about the memories, I don't remember actually playing it at home. It was at my grandmother's, but they had these little cartridges that you plug in to the gaming console. And my dad, who was a techie, he had taken one apart, and then they have little chips that you just kind of pop in and out of these little game boards, they're part of the cartridge. And so we had a whole tray full of these chips and labeled, Pong and Tank Master or whatever all the different games were back then. And we would just pop this chip out, put the other ones in, and it was just like that. It was like you're playing the actual game that you bought. So, and I would play that for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and all day long at my grandmother's. And when you're a kid, you don't even think about it. And like I mentioned, it was back in like 2005, 2006. Started getting into Facebook more, and then started this Facebook game called Mafia Wars. It was actually not, that wasn't the first one I started. I think Farm Town or something like that was one of the first ones, and that wasn't really a big deal. But started playing the Mafia Wars, and that was a game where you would build a mafia with other Facebook members. And to this day, I'd say probably 90% of my Facebook friends are members that I picked up playing Mafia Wars. You would just send out a friend request, hey, this person's playing Mafia Wars, and hey, I play Mafia Wars too. Let's connect. And so people all over the world. I mean, there's people in England, and in particular, I'm trying to think. Couple people in Norway, Sweden, just all over on my Facebook group from these Mafia Wars years. But a lot of this game was kind of more real, not real life, but in the timeline. It wasn't just kind of passive. So you would have things like wars, and you could steal from other people's properties. So part of the game was you had properties, and you could go and steal from other people's properties when they were, I'm trying to remember how it all worked, but when the money for those properties came in. So if you didn't check your properties when that money came in, somebody could come and steal it. And so you were tied to the game. It's like, okay, it's time. I got to go check my properties, And then if there was a war, somebody could come and kill you, and you'd have to there's all these different strategies and stuff like that. I actually had I was so into it that I had a blog called the Mafia Wars Geek, and I walked people through kind of like what I do with the Membership Man. How do you play Mafia Wars Geek? And with the Membership Answer Man, it's how do you start a membership site. But um, it was crazy. You couldn't walk away from the game because of, hey, I got to protect my properties. Hey, I got, there's a war going on, and I got to make sure if someone attacks me, I can attack them back. And it was so bad. I mean, I would not leave the house. It was like, hey, we need groceries, and I got to play my game. Hey, we'd really like to go out and let's go visit family. Oh, I can't leave my game. I mean, it was that bad. It was really, really that bad. Um, and so yeah, that was kind of my foray into gaming addiction, and noticing it, just being aware of it. I think that's half the battle right there, is just kind of being
Mm.
aware, you know.
How long did this go on for, roughly?
Boy, I'd say probably a good 5 to 7 years I played Mafia
Okay.
Wars. Yeah, yeah.
What was your family's reaction when you would decline going to family events or grocery shopping?
They didn't even know. I wouldn't say, oh, I got to play the game. I just like, I can't make it.
Uh,
So it was one of those things where I didn't say it was the game. Now the wife, she was like, she just kind of very, very forgiving and acceptable, and just kind of, hey, that's his thing. It could be worse type of thing.
mhm.
So, but it did. You noticed it just starts putting a cramp on life, and yeah. So
Well,
it was crazy.
you mentioned that 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 the hook almost was the fact that it was designed so that you couldn't really get away from the game for very long periods of time, or else what you've invested in the game would be lost somehow.
Yeah, it's not necessarily what you've invested in the game per se. I mean, you still always have achievements and things like that you can get. And I think game developers, they they're good at what they do. And I do think that a lot of them, probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they're actually employing psychologists and using strategies of reinforcement and things like that. How can we, use uh, from my psychology days, you've got all these reinforcement schedules. You got, to shape a behavior, you want continuous reinforcement. So every time I do this, I'm going to get a reward. Do this reward, do this reward, and that's going to shape a behavior and make that behavior build right away. And then to maintain a behavior, then you start pulling away that reward and just making it kind of an intermittent reward schedule. Kind of like when you go to a Coke machine, you put in your money, you get a Coke. And each time you put in your money, you're going to get a Coke. Well, what happens when all of a sudden you put in your money, you don't get a Coke? Well, what's going on here? And you put in, money again, you don't get a Coke, and then you put your money again and you get a Coke. And because it's random, it's a lot harder to break that behavior. But it's just one of those things where I think the game developers figure that stuff out, you know. And I also think that, I don't remember now how it worked with Mafia Wars. I'm sure they had advertising, but I think their goal also is, how do we keep people on the game for as long as possible? Because then they can go to their advertisers and say, the average user spends 10 hours a day on our game, you know.
Right.
And so um, yeah, and that's just a lot of it. It's very easy to get so involved in the game and feel like you do have to be on it all day long, to get the achievements and to get anywhere in it. And it's funny, as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about the current game that I play, and you kind of go through, am I addicted to this game type of thing? I've got it sitting right here next to me. Actually, it's an iPhone game, but at the same time, I can do stuff like this. Um, at a heartbeat, I could take off and leave and go grab lunch. In a heartbeat, I could take off and go meet my dad. There's that being tied to it's not there like it was in the past. It's like, it's there. I'll play it whenever I want. I don't care. And but there's a struggle that you go through even with this, where it's like you have to kind of um, negotiate with yourself and talk to yourself. And it's like, look, this is not that important. There's better things in life than this. Um, Matter of fact, I think one of the things that got me going and got me thinking about um, how to let Mafia Wars go was when I was reading the book Good to Great. And one of the things that stuck out at the time I was reading that book was, what am I going to stop doing to be a success in life? And then it's just kind of like, wow, I spent all this time playing this game. And you talk about this, all the missed opportunities and all the things that you could be doing that you're not because you're so involved in this game. And so it kind of hit me as like, I bet you I could achieve a lot more if I stopped playing this game all those hours that I play, And so much of being a success is not what can I do to meet my goals, but it's what can I stop doing to achieve my goals. And for me, it was, I think I could probably stop playing this game so much, and that would probably help achieve some goals. So,
That's a
yeah.
really good point because I think that's where I came to with my own addiction was the idea that in order for something to change, something has to change. And I knew my life wasn't going where I wanted it to go, but I was dedicating so many hours to playing this game that, really had become an almost extension of my real life. It was just as important, if not more important, at different places. So removing it seemed the only option for me to have space to start doing other things that weren't on a computer or on a console.
So, what steps did you take to remove it? I mean, it's a big
Well,
step for a lot of people.
it is. And so I want to hear about what you did too, but I'll just quickly say that for me, I had to do a complete detox of all gaming and social media. And
Mhm.
I did that for about 3 months.
Mhm.
And it was really hard. It was really, really hard. And I became very fearful of integrating some of it back into my life. But I had a chance to really think about what are things that I need to have and what are things that I don't need to have. So like Facebook was one of those things that I felt I needed. Even for like maybe creating a business one day, it's an important media tool. Um, but the other game I was playing, not so much. I didn't need that. It
Yeah.
wasn't important in my life. So I needed to completely detox and get away from it in order to then change my habits.
Mhm.
When yourself?
Yeah. It's like I said, coming from a background, I was a counselor for many years ago in my mid 20s to early 30s. I help people quit smoking for a living. And so a lot of the approach with helping somebody quit smoking is, you have this habit and yeah, it's hand mouth addiction, and you also have that physical addiction. But so much of it is, you have to deal with the two approaches. How do we get through the physical part, getting through that nicotine addiction, getting through the nicotine withdrawals, but then you also have the behavioral part, 20 times a day, hand to mouth, going to go out, take a break, I'm going to do this. So the approach was really also how to break the actual just habit. And one of those approaches was, when you had somebody who was um, just kind of on the fence. I'm not sure if I want to do this. One of the approaches is like, you know what? Let's play with this. Let's have some fun with it. And just for one day, let's not smoke. Let's just see what that's like.
Mm,
Or if your goal or if your normal behavior is I sit on my computer, open up my email, and then after reading 15 minutes of my email, I go outside with my dog. Well, okay, how about this? Instead of going outside with your dog, let's take your dog to a different place and let's leave your cigarettes, you know, inside while you take the dog out, and just do that for a day. And so a lot of this was just trying things out and just seeing, hey, how does that feel? And so for me, it got to the point where it's like, you know what, I think I'm going to do? I'm going to have some fun with this gaming stuff. I think I'm going to take a break just for a day. And I took a break for a day and I was like, this is nice. I'm getting a lot of stuff done and I'm able to hang out with family and friends and just it was almost like it was the weirdest feeling where I had this sense of freedom. It was it's so hard to explain. It was such a good feeling not being tied to the game.
mm.
I mean, I was like, wow, this feels good. And I'm like, and I was only the game or whatever, the test was just to go one day. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and go another day. And another day went around, then I was like, I don't really miss it. And it's really, it's kind of been kind of nice not playing the game. And then I was like, I'll go another day. It was literally like that, and it was really it's kind of tough because you do make a lot of friends in the gaming
Mhm.
community, in the mafia wars, in your mafia. Same thing with the games that I play now. You join squads, and you have an app that people will get on and talk outside the game called the Line app, and I've got two squads I'm members of, two different accounts, and they rely on you, but it's like I just had to tell them, you know what, I'm not going to play this game that much anymore. I got other stuff going on, building a business, and sorry guys, and most of them it's not a big deal. It's like, hey, real life, you got to do real life stuff. But a lot of retired people that just will sit and play, and that's great. If you've got nothing else going on, why not go play? Um, but again, when you take that break, there's that feeling of letting some people down. But you just, at the same time, that freedom of just letting it go. For Mafia Wars, it got to the point after 3 or 4 days where I just got on there and I just told everybody, I'm like, I don't miss it, people. I'm sorry, but I don't miss it, and won't be playing, anymore. So, and of course, to this day, I still have most of the friends from Mafia Wars, and that was what 10 years ago that I quit playing. So, yeah. But that was kind of the approach, and you just, so much of this, anything we do in life is kind of a fear. What's it going to be like? I don't know what it'll be like without it. And so, one way of approaching it is just, let's just see what it's like without it for a day, you know, or if that's too much, let's just see what it's like without it for 3 hours. Let's just put it down and test it and see what that's like. So, um, but there is that constant, just kind of also the fear of missing out, in the game. I'm missing out on that award. I'm missing out on that game achievement, or whatever little doohickey they're going to give you. I'm missing out on, collecting all my corn, you know. So yeah, and so that's how I attacked it, and it worked out pretty good, you know. So and
Well, that's
um,
really great. And I love how you brought up about the community around gaming and how those relationships and those games can, you feel responsible to these people, that you're pulling your own weight in the game. People are relying on you. And in some cases, things, at least in my experiences, you may have heard, got very toxic and very weird. And so, pulling away from that, um was really really hard, because, well, what are they going to do? Like, they're going to be fine. But I also love the question you asked about what would it feel like to not do this for a day. I love that.
yeah, test it out, see what it's like. So much of being an entrepreneur and so much of life is, let's throw something against the wall, see if it sticks, see what it's like. You never know. You never know till you try it. Um, and so much of it, again, is just the fear of, it doesn't have to be permanent. And all this stuff doesn't have to be permanent. It's like, if you're making a big move, I don't know if I want to move to that city. Well, yeah, it would be a big hassle, but you can always move back. you know kind of like if you're going to get a new job. Yeah, I don't know if I want that new job. Well, if you don't like it, you go get a different job. you know um, I'm a firm believer in just testing stuff out, seeing what works, and if it doesn't work, switch, move on. you know Play with it.
It also is a good way to sort of like, for me, for example, I often describe me changing a behavior as like dealing with an internal 5-year-old. Like, I really have to negotiate with myself a lot to change certain behaviors or certain things that I enjoy doing. So, like, now one of my big things is Netflix, and I have to like negotiate with myself, like, well, you can't watch Netflix until you've done X, Y, and Z. So this idea of like, well, it's not forever, it's just for today. Just, we're going to do it for today, and then tomorrow, if we feel like it wasn't that good, we can go back to it. So it's almost like the psychology on the self and it might turn into a forever thing, but it's getting over that fear of what is my life going to look like without gaming in it?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I without that component in my life kind of thing?
Yeah. And what's that been like for you? I mean, as you let the games go, what have you discovered about who you are?
I think I've discovered that I'm a pretty creative person when I give myself space to be so and time. Um, and I think that a lot of the energy that I put into um, like helping other in my gaming life, I'm discovering is far more useful in my real life. That I can do so much more good in helping others or offering my services in some way um, than I could there. Um, because it's not only forwarding potentially somebody else's life, but also my own.
Hmm.
And in a game, I just sort of live in the confines of that gaming construct. It doesn't really improve my real life at all, unless, I'm earning some sort of income or
Yeah.
something from it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So what does gaming look like for you now?
We've touched on, I touched on just briefly that gaming's still a part of my life. Again, I've got some iPhone games that I play, and you've got Wordscapes or whatever else that you play, and even that was a time where Wordscapes has tournaments every weekend, and even that got to a point where it was starting to lead into the addiction, you know, uh, section, addiction. It was moving to addiction where, oh my gosh, it's a tournament. And I would play that thing every waking hour on the weekends. And again, it got to the point where it's like, no, I'm not going to do this again. No, we're not going to do this. It's not that big of a deal to be in first or second place. And um, not the time requirements and all that, and taking over my life. I was like, nah, it, you know, letting it go. Um, so a lot of that now is, yeah, the games are there, um, but a lot more controlled. Like you said, it's like I will play the game after type of thing. I'll watch Netflix after. So I do have a fairly structured day where, yeah, I wake up and I might play the game in the morning. Um, it's kind of a toss up. Again, sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to even worry about it right now. But um, at a certain time in the morning, then I go to work. And again, since I'm an entrepreneur, I work from home, and I do my own thing. But I do have structured hours where it's work hours, and so I get stuff accomplished and do what I need to do. And then after that, if I feel like I want to jump on and play the game, great. Oftentimes it's like, yeah, I'm not going. I'm just not going to today. So. Um, but it could still, there's still that potential. You talked about being kind of a fear of going back to social media. There's still always that, hey, I've got to be careful. I could go back and easily get caught up into playing this thing 16 hours a day, trying, the fear of missing out. I need that particular doohickey in the game, or that particular doohickey is going to take this amount of points, and it's like, you know yeah, nah, I'm not, we're not going to go there. Just let it go. It's not that important in my life. There's lots of questions, like Brian Tracy will often ask himself, is this the best use of my time right now?
Mm.
And so, there's a lot of that when you start playing a game of like, is this the best use of my time? And still throughout the day, it's funny. Sir John Mark Templeton of Templeton Mutual Funds, he wrote a book, audio, I think it was an audio program, and I can't remember now what it was titled. It might have been like the 12 Habits of Successful People. But he said, if you get to the point where you're watching more than 20 hours of TV in a year, you'll never be successful. Think
20
about that,
hours in a year.
20 hours in a year. And I'm like, man, I
Oh
watch
dear.
20 hours and I watch 20 hours in a week, you know, and I play 20 hours. I still play at least 20 hours of the game, a week. I mean, at least, I'm looking at, yeah, you know, so it's just funny. I'm like, I think about that. I'm like, I guess I'll never be successful, but, that's some pretty hardcore, when you stop and think about that. But it also kind of just puts things in perspective where you constantly want to be asking yourself, is this the best use of my
Right.
time right now? You know, so yeah,
Right.
games are still part of my life. Um, it's just, I think I've got a lot more control over them and just more awareness than I
Mm,
had before. Because again, you know, you you go through that whole stage where you're just not even aware of it, and there's the stages of
mhm,
change,
mhm,
where you're kind of oblivious to everything. I don't, I can smoke away, no big deal. It's not affecting my life. Everybody's doing it, and you're not even aware that it's an issue and there's any even need to change. It's just not even on your radar. Too, okay, now I'm having trouble breathing, and other people are quitting, and maybe that's something to do. So you're now starting to get in that stage of change of you're kind of looking at it and thinking about it, and so much of helping people make changes is working them through those stages of change from the point of oblivious, I don't think I even need to make a change, to thinking about it, to maybe I'll go ahead and take action, to taking action, to staying, um, long-term change, and in your new kind of behavior of not doing what you were doing. So you know um, it just got to a point where I became aware of it, and then that kind of mindfulness, being aware of it from then on is always there. The oblivious factor is not gonna be there. So
That's great.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
really good. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure. Yeah. I talked a couple times about just, being an entrepreneur, and you're always trying things out and throwing it against the wall, and will this stick? And the latest thing that I'm working on here is the membership answer man. Long-term goal of mine since, late teens is how can I help people succeed in life? And I always want to be a success coach. What kind of things can I do to help impact others and help them find success in their life, and whatever success is defined for them. And so with the membership answer man, memberships are a way of taking something and teaching it to others. Hey, you know how to help people with gaming addiction. Let's go out and make a difference in the world and help other people overcome their game addiction. And part of the membership answer man is helping people find out what their talent is, and then going out there and helping others, succeed, by what they know. And um, my mission is just to break things down to a place where it's like any boulders in your path, any kind of obstacles that come up, let's get through them. My goal is to get down into the weeds with people. And you know my one of my avatars is someone that I view my dad. you know so you can go and you can take a course on learning how to do a membership site, and they say just go get a business. you know well, my dad's like, well, how do you do that? Where do I go? Okay, well, you go to the state of Washington's website. I live in Washington. You go to the state of Washington's website. You just look up, business, and um, it could be the Secretary of State you're going to go to if you're going to set up the LLC. But I walk them through that, and I said, and then if you're in a different state, you'll just go to that state's website, and again, and this is you go and you get a business license. And that business license could be for doing business as, or it could be for a limited liability company. It could be for a corporation. Now, again, I'm not going to go into super details with them on that, but I'm going to give them a lot more details, so that they can overcome those obstacles. So my avatar is those people is like, well, how do I make a Facebook banner? I don't know how to make that picture. And so, hey, let's jump into Canva and let's create, the right size image that's going to go into your Facebook banner. And for a lot of people, it's like, do you really need to teach that? But there are people like my dad that don't know it. There's people like my father-in-law that's like, what's the start button on Windows? What's that? What's an internet browser? And
Hmm.
so I really want to break things down for people. Um, and there's this common idea, and I get it. I get it, because there's a saying that you don't want to, overshare and give tons and tons of stuff because you can't cover everything.
Hmm.
And then there's also a lot of people say, well, I don't really want to get into details of how to use Microsoft Word because it's always changing. And my view is, well, when it changes, I'll just update the video. You know, um, I want to be able to hold people's hands more and um, help them with any roadblocks and obstacles. I don't want them to get stuck. And if they get stuck, they're going to stop. It's like, I don't know how to do that Facebook banner, so I'm just not going to worry about it. And they move on rather than figuring it out. And so my goal is to figure that stuff out with them. And really get into details. I mean, I can't often I read a book and it's like on how to do real estate investing. And it's like they just kind of gloss over a lot of stuff. Go talk to, a real estate agent, look at 10 homes, grab 3, but they just gloss over all the other little details of investing in real estate that could have been helpful, So that's where I'm at with the membership answer man, is really diving in and getting into details. And, if someone's got a question of, how do I connect my domain name to, that I own to my Kajabi website, or to my Podia website, I don't know how to do that. And, let's walk you through that. I'll show you. My mission is just, again, I want to help people succeed. And that drives me. I don't know if you run into this a lot, but as an entrepreneur, you have ups and downs. Have days where it's just kind of like, imposter syndrome. Never really experienced that up until lately, where it's like, should I be here type of thing? Who am I to teach other people how to have a membership site? And what keeps me going is focusing on my mission, and that is to help people succeed. I really want to help people like my dad. I view my dad whenever I have that doubt of, should I be doing this? It's like, yeah, I should. And that gets me up every day gets me going.
That's great. And it's so important. And I apologize for that little ring there. So I just wanted to just shout out your website information. So the membershipanswerman.com, and you also have a Facebook page and a YouTube. Yep. So check that out, everybody.
Yeah, you can reach me at any of those. Reach out to me, Sean at the membershipanswerman.com. And if you have any questions, if you have any issues that you might be running into, we can do a Zoom call and pop in there and work on whatever you're working on. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Sean, and for this awesome interview. Maybe you'd want to come back and do another one at some point.
Absolutely.
Talk more about games.
Yeah, I can. We can talk about games and business for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
It's a kick in the pants. It's just you got to keep everything in control of these games. And I tell you,
right.
As part of this. But it's been a pleasure, and thank you for having me. It's my first podcast as a guest, and it's definitely been an experience. So thank you.
Good. I'm honored to have you here. And please check out Sean's website, YouTube, and Facebook, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Take care.